Hi, I'm Andy Tufano with Gold Star Training, and this is Raising the Bar. In today's episode, we're going to talk about communication, and specifically how communication impacts conflict resolution. You ever wonder why security officers say and do things that make matters worse? Well, there may be some explanations and reasons for that. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how officers at the point of conflict with resistant subjects find it difficult to access training, and also how to apply it in very high-stress situations. Well, typically if an officer enters a very emotionally unstable environment, whether they're emotionally unstable or the individual they're interacting with is unstable, it makes it much more difficult to actually assess prior training. And here are the reasons. During stress, especially acute stress, officers will feel vulnerable during these times when subjects are resistant verbally and or physically resistant. That vulnerability leads to defensive responses. That's typical, that's normal of all humans. When they feel vulnerable, they act defensive. In the context of workplace conflict, these are very important decisions and how to respond defensively. Now, sometimes, as a bad example, officers will be sarcastic in response to feelings of vulnerability, a typical defensive response. On the other hand, if they respond defensively to a subject that is aggressive with them, that would create a safe environment. Under these conditions, especially stress and acute stress, the physiological and cognitive changes that happen in the body make it much more difficult for officers to recall training. Ultimately, what happens is it's a training blackout. As stress increases and cognitive changes, mental processes change, and makes it much more difficult to find and access and apply training in that environment. So why does this happen? Well, for one reason, officers don't understand how these emotional triggers impact their ability to think and actually be able to communicate. On another hand, it may be in response to training. Oftentimes, training is emotionally void, meaning that the concepts taught are taught without actually trying to integrate the deep emotions that are always found in live interactions. And so if the training environment doesn't spend any time practicing these concepts that they're being taught while experiencing these emotions, then in real live field interactions, because they don't understand how the emotions impact their ability to think through these ideas, it makes it much more difficult for officers to say and do the right thing. Okay, this is a basic introduction to these ideas. We're going to cover these in greater detail, especially talk about how we can improve training to ultimately improve the officer's communication at the point of contact. Again, this is Andy Tufano with Gold Star Training, and this is Raising the Bar. Thanks for listening.